Então, vamos seguir o dia de hoje com a última apresentação do dia antes dos comentários finais. A apresentação é da Hertz, do Benjamin Lardinoit, e ele é um apaixonado por tecnologia e vai mostrar, eu vou tirar a tela aqui para que ele possa aparecer e compartilhar a tela dele, ele vai estar falando sobre os sistemas da Hertz, que de certa forma, oferece um modelo não convencional de produção. O Benjamin me corrija depois se eu estiver errado, mas que assim, é desafiador e interessante. Então, vamos ver aí, Benjamin, o que você tem aí para ensinar para a gente.
Yes, hello, and definitely you're not wrong. So I'm Benjamin Lardinoit, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hertz. Usually, traditionally, NAB is a very important place to meet a lot of Brazilian customers. Unfortunately, this year we had to change plans, but luckily WEBNAB gave us an opportunity to just talk to you a little bit more about what Hertz does. So if you allow me, I'll just share my screen. And that's it, if I can do that. And you should now see my screen. Okay, so the topic of my presentation today is twofold. First of all, how do we put a full radio studio in a backpack? And then actually behind that, how do we leverage virtualized solutions to just offer more agile workflows to broadcasters and radio broadcasters? Do you see my screen correctly? Can you just confirm, Marco, that it's running well? Okay, looking good. A little bit of background on Hertz. We are mostly known for something that we did already 2 years ago, because we worked with the Belgian public broadcaster VRT, to make the first radio show in Europe from a hot air balloon possible. So at the time, VRT was looking for technical solutions to offer and to make that show. But obviously it was not that easy. Something I learned in the process is that when you are blowing air in a hot air balloon, once the basket goes up, you only have 20 minutes to put the people and the equipment on board. So obviously, if you have to build a full radio studio in there in 20 minutes, it's going to be some kind of a challenge. But then we worked with them and we made it possible. They were just using a Microsoft Surface tablet, another laptop, and then they were using a vMix to transmit also some video feeds to Facebook in that case. Recently, we have been, of course, very involved with broadcasters to just enable and make possible radio shows from home. This is one of the setup, a real picture from a show that was taken. And as you can see, we have actually 2 presenters, the traditional host, but also his little boy. I guess the key part here is you can see the setup is pretty minimal. We just have a few screens, of course, a sound card to plug the microphone and headset. And that was it. He was able to run a show from home for 2 months in a row without any issue. We'll get back to this in just a minute. Actually, the problem, our approach to problem might be new, but the problem that we are trying to solve are not new at all. Again, 2 years ago, we were invited by the EBU. I guess you know them. It's the European Broadcasting Union. And they invited us to a seminar that they organize. And during the introduction session, the head of technology there pointed those challenges that all broadcasters were facing. And I'm sure you will recognize them. I'm not going through the full list with you, but I'll just take the first 3. Reduce costs. I'm sure this is very much something you hear. And in the light of COVID-19, of course, this is going to hit us harder and harder, that's for sure. Increase reach to audience. To put it a bit differently, how do you stay relevant to your audience? So that is definitely very important. And finally, increase workflow efficiency. So the budget's going down, the teams are also shrinking a little bit, but at the same time, you are asked to produce more content. So how do you make that happen? So we look back a little bit and say, okay, where can we help? What could be our contribution? And actually, we noticed that the broadcast infrastructure of most broadcaster, we could define it by three words. It's definitely heavy in every sense of the word. It's heavy to move when you need to move it, but it's also heavy to set up and everything. It's complex. If you go back to the roots, radio is pretty simple. You are playing music, talking in microphone, and interacting with the audience. And still, if you look at that picture, I'm sure you could notice that it doesn't seem as straightforward as what I just described. And then it's expensive. And the main reason for this is that broadcast infrastructure and radio infrastructure has been relying heavily on FPGAs and DSPs and so on. And of course, those are not easy to develop. They require some extensive R&D budgets. And that also means that the price that you pay as a customer for a product is going up quite a lot. This is something I saw appearing in my LinkedIn thread just a few days ago, and I thought that is pretty interesting because it basically includes feedback or conclusion, if you like, from very important players in our industry. So here it's a mix of radios and TVs and also suppliers, but basically very large players. And they come up to really the same conclusion as the EBU. We have to adapt. Otherwise, we become dinosaurs, and we all know what happens to dinosaurs. I think the bottom line is we all know that the one that survives is the one that adapts. That is really key in our thinking here. So how can we adapt? Our approach is a little bit provocative. And it's really hardware is irrelevant. No, if I want to be a little bit more easy on that, I should probably say hardware is almost irrelevant. Why is that? Well, because we can run most of the thing that we are doing today. We can run that on off-the-shelf IT equipment nowadays. It does not require FPGAs and DSPs anymore. And remember what I said about the cost of those. Of course, we will always need a way to plug our microphone and headsets and so on. So IOs and also control surfaces. If you're in a big radio studio, of course, you will need physical fader to operate the matrix. That's for sure. But maybe in other cases, we can automate things a little bit. User interface is definitely something on which we are putting a very strong focus. We believe, again, one of the power of what we are trying to offer is that the user interface will adapt to the user. So they are intuitive, they are really easy to understand and to onboard. And finally, they can be customized per type of user. So typically, you will not offer the same interface to a presenter and to an engineer, although both interface will be sourced from the same underlying infrastructure, if I may say. And finally, what we want to achieve for sure is that we need more flexible and decentralized operations. Again, the pandemic here showed us that with everything that was centralized and heavily hardware dependent, it was extremely heavy for and difficult for broadcasters to basically turn around and start creating and making content as they were before the crisis. And it took a few weeks before that started to look normal again. Some of them are still struggling. And what we know for the future is that even though broadcaster will be able to go back to the studio, it's very likely that you are not going to invite people there as much as before. So again, you will need to do some kind of remote operations, contribution, and so on. And definitely TeamViewer is not an option. TeamViewer, first of all, it's a problem in terms of security, because anybody that has an access to that team viewer has an access to whatever is connected to the computer on the other side. And secondly, it's not scalable at all. You can have a team viewer for your automation solution, then you will need another team viewer for your mixer, and then another one for the phone hybrid, and then what? It's definitely not scalable. Okay, still, if we are serious about this and we really want to make a difference, there will be a few checkboxes that we need to have under control. The first one is that, of course, the solutions need to be broadcast great. That means stable, powerful. They need to do what you are already used to do with your traditional equipment, and they need to seem familiar. The goal is not to completely change the way you operate, or at least your interfaces. It's really to offer something that you can very easily have under control. Secondly, we need to bring agility. The landscape is changing very fast. We now have cross-media delivery. We talked about podcasts earlier today. We talked about video. We talked about social media and so on. You also have to have asynchronous delivery, so on demand as well. And basically anybody with an iPhone can become a reporter. So what kind of solution do we bring to broadcaster to make sure that you can adapt to those changing conditions? That is very, very critical. Openness and interoperability. We do not believe in supplier lockdown. We know you want to have your choice, basically. And there are a few tools that you cannot work without. So basically, that means we need to do two things: integrate within existing workflows, and secondly, offer ways to also integrate with our solutions in the other side, on the other side. And finally, easy onboarding. More and more users have less and less technical understanding. And of course, that is normal. Teams are shrinking. The workflows become more complex. And the emphasis is put on fast turnaround of content. So when you buy a new phone, you are not reading the user guide every time. And really, ultimately, this is what we are aiming to do with our solutions. Of course, they are much more technical than a smartphone, but in the concept, this is what we would like to achieve. Just in, let's say, 30 minutes, an hour, or a couple of hours, you should be able to go back to normal and not notice a difference. Now, if you want to become a power user, that's also possible, of course. If I go back to my slide there, where I was referring to the traditional broadcast infrastructure, heavy, complex, expensive, again, what can be the response to this? And here it is. It's actually the response to the title of this presentation. How do you put a full studio in your backpack? It's pretty easy. You transform it into an application that runs on a laptop. And the only thing you need on the side of it is a sound card to which you will connect your microphone and headset, because of course you don't want to have bad audio quality. You want to keep the standards high, and an internet connection. And that internet connection will be needed, of course, for the phone, but also for the transmission back to the MCR. If you look at the screenshots that we have here, I believe we did a good job at trying to make things intuitive. That is, again, very important to us. We put a lot of effort in this. And the last thing to say maybe is that Lumo, because that's the name of the product, I didn't mention it yet, offers a flexible licensing. So unlike traditional equipment, if you buy it, you just use it for a few weeks and then you don't need it for 6 months. It's just sitting on the shelf. With Lumo, if you need a license for 3 weeks during the summer because you have a pop-up radio or pop-up event or whatever, that's totally doable, and you will only pay for what you get. These are a few pictures of real show that we are making. So of course the hot air balloon thing was a little bit of a highlight, if I may say, but really this is very, very marginal in what we are doing every single day. The bulk of the shows that we are helping to broadcast with our solutions are really everyday shows that are made, from various locations and very simple. They don't have to be as complex as the hot air balloon thing. That brings me to my next point. Besides Lumo, what we also have is a solution called Artisto. Artisto is actually the engine that is powering Lumo. And it's a virtualized audio core for broadcasters, and that is very important. I will show you a short video in just a minute. There are products with similar philosophy in other industries. I'm thinking music or IoT, but nothing really like it in broadcast. So again, we put a lot of effort in making a solution that is made for broadcasters. And by broadcasters, I'm not only referring to our extensive experience in this industry, but really Artisto is a toolbox that we are providing you to come up with solutions that fit exactly your challenges and your needs. And of course, we can help you in designing those solutions. You can also do it yourself or get supported by, for example, system integrators. So let me quickly show you a short video on how Artisto works. As you will see, Artisto is very much a infrastructure solution. So it's not made to be a end user application, at least not the designer part that you will see. But here is a good example. So we have been building a Nicecast stream monitoring solution, and this is based on a real use case that my co-founder had in his previous job. It was really painful, involved a lot of equipment, cross-conversion, and then distribution of the signal everywhere. What we wanted to show is that using virtualized, the virtual engine, we can actually use simple web pages as user interface, and of course you can access them everywhere. The user interface itself and the logic that controls it is taking no more than 300 lines of code, so it's very, very simple. And what you're driving behind that is actually Artisto, and this is what you are seeing now, Artisto and the Graph Designer. This is where you will design and build the exact workflow that fits the challenge that you have to face. In this case, Icecast stream monitoring. So you saw I just selected my processing nodes and click them on the graph to just add them. Now I'm saying, okay, I don't need 4 inputs and 2 outputs, but today I need 12 inputs and 2 outputs. I can, of course, name all of those inputs and outputs as we are seeing here. I'm zooming out a little bit, doing the same thing there, because of course we also need 12 inputs on the PPM and 12 inputs on the level detector. And now what I'm doing is simply adding the link, the URL to the stream, the Icecast stream. You can then preset a few parameters, although to be comprehensive on this, you can control actually everything through the API, and that's really the goal for the operational side. When you're done with all your blocks and all the presets, you simply wire them together. And it's as simple as this. Virtual cables that you put and that you connect to various links. There you go, you're done. You may want to save your project, not only because you need to keep track of it, but because you can export it and actually run it on a different machine as well. And now let's say you want to run it on this local machine. This is what I'm doing right now. You click start and it's basically running. And now you see in just a few minutes, we built a stream monitoring solution. A few hours later, we gave the specs to our in-house front-end developer. He came up with this design where you can really detect silences and also pre-decide which channel you want to pre-listen. Okay, and that's it already for me, 15 minutes, that goes fast. You have actually 2 more options if you want to know more about Hertz and our solutions, Lumo and Artisto. First of all, nothing like your own experience. So you can go on our website and request a demo license. I'll be really happy to give that to you. Secondly, of course, we can talk. You have my details there. So feel free to reach out. We can schedule a call, and I'll give you a much broader overview and also try to figure out which challenge we can tackle together. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Obrigado, Benjamin.
You're welcome.
My
pleasure.
Muito bom. De fato, assim, é desafiador aí. Na hora que você... quando você vai para o software, que você põe na mesa possibilidade de código para fazer o que quiser, né? O limite é um pouco a imaginação.